The Afghan-American Chamber of Commerce serves the interest of its members through numerous programs, advocates for a free and open market economy in Afghanistan, and endeavors to strengthen U.S.-Afghanistan economic relations. AACC's annual U.S.-Afghanistan Business Matchmaking Conference is the world's leading event for promotion of the private sector, business matchmaking, and investment in Afghanistan. AACC works to ensure that Afghanistan's economy and employment of the Afghan people remains a top priority for the U.S. and Afghan policymakers and serves as a link between business and government to encourage progressive economic policies that will result in increased business, job creation, and investment between the U.S. and Afghanistan. We believe that peace and stability can only be achieved in Afghanistan through the success and growth of the private sector. It is the goal of AACC to promote the exchange of information and provide resources to its members through investment conferences, seminars, networking events, publications, and other avenues to stimulate U.S.-Afghanistan business and investment. The Afghan-American Chamber of Commerce, facilitating U.S.-Afghan business, investment, and trade ties.
We on? Yes. So thank you, Suleiman and Dr. Bayat, who gave a great introduction to this whole topic. And I think also emphasized that there is still a lot of growth and opportunity. There's no question about that. Our panel, which we've done more or less every year, pretty much since I can recall, back to 2003, is focused on ICT. And what we're including, of course, is information communications technology. It is primarily currently dominated by voice communications, which is really what AACC started. But we're going to have some discussion about some things that are in the pipeline now and are going to be happening and coming very soon. And we have a fantastic panel to enlighten everybody, and then of course we'll have questions and answers at the end of that as well. So I'm going to just mention who we have, and then we're going to go right down the line in terms of everyone speaking. And by the way, you guys don't have to come up to the podium. You can stay as long as the microphone works. I think we'll be all right. So as Dr. Bayat mentioned, we're happy and lucky to have a key player, which is the chairman of the Afghanistan Telecommunications Regulatory Authority, Dr. Azizi. And this is, I believe, year 5 or 6, isn't it, that you've been there? So he's got a key role to play in leading where the future of this sector goes. And as Dr. Bayat mentioned, it's really heavily, it's a regulated industry, so it's heavily dependent on rules and regulations and the leadership of the board and the staff. So he'll be leading us off. He'll give hopefully a good introduction to some of the, as I say, indicated some of the important things that are happening. Some have recently happened with new awards, and some things are still coming down the pike. We also have Joel Allen, who is president of Talia, Afghanistan. He is someone who's been in the business for a long time, and in Afghanistan, equally, if I can say a long time. I'm happy to say I recruited him there, a long time ago, to deal with fiber optic, to get the first, let's say, diversity of sources for fiber optic. And he's just launched a new venture that he'll be talking about that dovetails to what I'm saying about what ATRA has been doing. Monty Simus is with AACC. And again, as Dr. Bayat mentioned, it's good news to hear that the new generation, 4G as it's called, LTE, is being finally, if I can say, made commercially available, because for most Afghans, the only available way to get access to internet will be through the mobile device. So that's basically what the promise of that particular service category will be. And then we have Ken Chen with ARX Communications. He will be talking about a variety of things, but culminating with basically one of the new service areas that they're getting into. They have been established, again, probably 5-6 years, doing infrastructure construction deployment for many of the carriers, and they've gotten their license for some additional service category. And I think that will be an important thing, because again, to make it frankly very simple, data communications will be the future of the future growth for Afghanistan. In order to make that happen, there has to be pipes, conduits that bring the service in and out of Afghanistan, and that's basically what we're all excited about for the next couple of years. The last thing I'll just say is, as Suleiman mentioned, the ICT working group, which is part of the AACC, is a sort of informal volunteer group. Anyone who's in the room is interested can certainly approach me or Jeff and join, participate. I've mentioned, or I've listed the people who are part of our, let's say, immediate team, mainly because we've been active in the business in Afghanistan for a while, but also, frankly, we're fairly close here to Washington. If I can just go to the next slide, please. One of our members, Larry Wentz, affiliated with National Defense University, has put together a tremendous piece of work, a compendium of documents and articles, chapters on the entire ICT sector from actually going to the 30s. It's really an amazing, colossal work. I'm pleased and privileged to say I have contributed 2 chapters to it, one on digital financial services or finance in ICT, and one of them on basically the legal, regulatory, or enabling environment. This might be too hard for everyone to grab off the screen, but you can access the links through the website. And as I say, this is a good place for anyone who's interested in great detail and facts to get. One's a short version and sort of a culmination of the summary, and then one of them's a long, let's say, over 1,000-page peer-reviewed document. That's all for my intro, and I'm now going to ask Dr. Azizi. Thank you.
It's on? There we go. Oh, great. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I want to start with something which is not on my presentation, and I would like to say a few sentences, because I can see that pretty much most of the attendees are confused what is the Afghanistan Telecom Regulatory Authority. For my American colleagues, I would say that it is equivalent of FCC in Afghanistan. What we do is that we are an independent authority. We used to be part of the Ministry of Communications, but now we are an independent authority, and we deal with the ICT issues. And according to the telecom law, we are the highest level decision-making organization in the country in regards to the issues of ICT. Now, we issue licenses for fixed telephones, for mobile, for internet service providers, and then also for broadcasters, both analog and digital TV. We do issue different types of small licenses for the technical solution providers, for the value-added service providers, and we do the frequency and spectrum management. We do have the responsibility to monitor the ICT market, and in particular, it is our main responsibility to look into the compliance issues based on the terms and conditions of the different licenses issued to the licensees. With this introduction, let me be very clear that the new management of the Telecom Regulatory Authority has envisioned that by 2022, we want to see a different Afghanistan in terms of the digital services and also the infrastructures that are required. So we are having a goal that by 2022, at least 50% of the Afghan population must be online. Now the question is that how we can really make it happen. The first thing is that we have to make an environment where we allow the different actors to play their roles in a very effective manner. What we are trying for 2018, that we will be releasing a whole bunch of new spectrum bands so that we enable the current mobile operators to start their full-fledged 4G operations in Afghanistan. At this moment, AACC has already started more than 100 testing sites in Kabul, and likewise other operators such as Roshan, Salat, MTN, they're also working on different sites where they are testing their 4G services, but early 2019 will be the year that we will have a full-fledged 4G services in Afghanistan. And I think it's a good opportunity for me to also thank USAID in particular. Yesterday I had a meeting and I have got confirmation that the technical support in terms of a consultancy firm to do transparent auction of the new spectrum bands will be supported by aid, and we are thankful for that. Likewise, the future of Afghanistan, when we talk as the transit hub for the digital activities, include the opportunities on how we can transit data from Central Asia and China towards South Asia, and then vice versa. We have to focus on the increased coverage of both telephony and data services. At this moment, the telephony services is approximately 90% in Afghanistan, and by 2020, we aim to increase it to 95%. Also, it is part of our vision that we have to increase the efficiency and effectiveness of the Universal Access Fund, or what we call it in Afghanistan, Telecom Development Fund, TDF, to make sure that we serve and we provide the adequate services to the underserved areas and unserved areas. And lastly, though it's not our primary objective as the regulator, however, being part of the government, we would like to see the contribution of the ICT sector in Afghanistan by 2025 over $1 billion, so that Dr. Bayat and other chairmen of the different operators in Afghanistan compete more to pay more taxes and enable the treasury of Afghanistan to spend more money on education and also on health and other services. Now, the ICT sector in Afghanistan poses challenges as well. The very difficult terrain that we have got, the conditions for the network deployment, basic services in particular, the unavailability of electricity is an issue. Likewise, a large number of the population are still living in the rural areas. the country is landlocked. Getting access to international gateways is a challenge. And then local content is also an issue that since a very small number of Afghans understand or they have learned English, so we do need local content, which is Pashto, Dari, and other languages. It's a challenge for us. And then digital illiteracy is another challenge, which is keeping the sector somehow under pressure. I'm confident that most of you understand that the ICT sector in Afghanistan is the largest source of revenue amongst all other sectors. It's only the customs which generates more revenue. And then it is the ICT sector that contributes mainly to the government treasury. And to one of the questions that was raised about the success of the ICT sector in Afghanistan, let me say that Mr. Bayat also mentioned it, and I would add to that that the rule of the game became clear back in 2002 in regards to the ICT sector. Both the government of Afghanistan knew their responsibilities and then also their authority. And also, the private sector was well aware that if they are investing, what sort of protection is for them and how much the government would change the rule. And since the government was persistent that we did not change the rule of the game, that's why it remained a successful venture in Afghanistan. And we are committed that we would continue with playing fairly with the private sector, and we have no intentions to hurt them because we do understand how much positive contribution they have had towards the economic development of the country. Now, the ICT sector, on one hand, within the sector, it has got a lot of mechanisms that gets developed over time, and it brings changes for within the sector. But then there are non-ICT sectors that also get the positive contribution from the ICT. So it brings efficiency in terms of the operating costs, it decreases the costs, and then access to information becomes more available. When I joined the Telecom Regulatory Authority back at the end of 2014, it was very important for me to find out a solution how to build a relationship of trust between the regulator and the private sector. It was not easy at all. I can tell you guys that I had to take a lot of blames, both from the private sector and the government colleagues in particular at the cabinet level, that, okay, probably Azizi is too soft, Azizi is not really fit for the job, and he is very afraid of the private sector. So all those allegations I had to digest, and the good thing is that we got the result out of that. So to put it in context, back in 2016, we started working with a group of consultants, and also we had consultation sessions with the private sector on how to further liberalize the ICT sector in Afghanistan. So we introduced the open access policy with the objective to facilitate more investment and also to make sure that we bring development and growth in the ICT sector. Encourage the provisions of the broadband services to unserved and underserved areas. And then the open access policy also aims to basic on how to really open the access of both active and passive infrastructures in a transparent manner, and also to make sure that discrimination does not occur. So this is something that we introduced back in 2016. Now, in the meantime, we started working on the plan that how we can make Afghanistan once again as the hub of transit. In particular, we came up with this notion of digital Silk Road so that we could think of the old philosophy of trade, but then in its modern and digital way. So we all understand that there is a continued demand from commercial bandwidth providers between Far East in Europe as a driving interest in order to seek new and diverse routes between the different regions. In this regard, we have worked with the World Bank, and we have got a project, Digital CASA. Again, the whole idea is how to connect Central Asia and South Asia in a digital manner. The initial investment that is coming from the World Bank is $51 million. And just to give a brief introduction of it, that there are three main components to it. The first component is enabling environment, so that we provide more conducive environment for the private sector to come forward and invest in Afghanistan. The second is infrastructure development. And the third is the e-gov services, so that we bring more efficiency and also transparency in the government or in the electronic governance and electronic government-related services. So the first stage was introduction of the open access policy. There was a second stage to it, which was to bring the required regulations and make the rule of the game clear for everybody, which pretty much in consultation with the sector we have developed. And based on that, we came up with the concept of fiber optic licenses. National fiber optic licenses means that there will be full-fledged national fiber deployment by the licensee, and then we have got two other categories. The regional, which means that a couple of provinces could be connected, and then the third one is metropolitan, which in particular looks into how to resolve the issue of provision of fiber to the home. Whereas the third stage is more of implementation of the infrastructure sharing and more of content development and establishment of the internet exchange points, etc., etc. So, just 3 days before Nowruz, on 19th March, ATRA issued 4 licenses to 4 different companies: Etisalat, Roshan, AACC, and Asia Consultancy Group. So I've got AACC and Asia Consultancy Group here with me today. They would express their own feelings, how do they feel. But as a regulator, I understand that we were able to give licenses in a very transparent manner. And we have got a commitment of $380 million from these companies that they would invest in the next 5 years in the deployment of fiber, which is something that makes the digital Silk Road very close to become a reality, and which means that the future of the ICT sector would be brighter. Likewise, just before coming here, I had a couple of meetings with the private sector, and I'm happy to say that since we have expressed our readiness for the releasing of more spectrum for the 4G and LTE services, there was a commitment from the sector that they are also ready to invest over $100 million in 2018 and 2019 in order to deploy the 4G services across Afghanistan. So I will not get into the technical details of it. Okay, couple of things that are promising, and I understand that it gives us the opportunity to gain more trust from the private sector. Just before coming to the BMC, the president has indicated that he would issue a special decree. I think Chairman Bayat will not be aware of it, but I think I'm just going ahead of the issuance of the decree. The government of Afghanistan is making a commitment to the private sector that in order to make sure that the deployment of their infrastructure happens in a smooth manner, the government will provide land or right-of-ways to the operators on priority basis. There has been complaints in regards to the city power or electricity available in different parts of Afghanistan, but on discriminatory basis, the telecom sector has been excluded. Now the president will give clear instructions through this decree to make sure that city power will be available for the ICT sector as well. Likewise, almost each of the mobile operators have invested more than $500 million in Afghanistan. And all the funds they have raised in terms of loans from abroad, not from Afghanistan. I had raised this issue at the High Economic Council, and once again, His Excellency the President was kind enough. And it will be part of his presidential decree that he will instruct the Central Bank of Afghanistan to come up with a policy not only for the ICT sector investors, but then also for any huge investor, that there should be some relaxed and then also some clear guidelines how they can raise loans from the banks in Afghanistan. And the last good message from this decree is that a committee will be formed in order to assess all the taxes that are paid by the ICT sector in Afghanistan. And based on our commitments in WTO, we will be revising it, and we will make our recommendations to the High Economic Council. It will be chaired by the Minister of Finance and the Minister of Economy and the Minister of Justice and a couple of others, including ATRA, and a representative from the private sector will be part of it. So, another good news is that the GSM spectrum block of frequency for Roshan and AACC that expires this year will be extended for another 10 years, which is a good news. And in regards to the accountability and transparency, let me share with you the news that for the first time, ATRA has invited independent financial auditors in order to audit ATRA, both the Telecom Development Fund and the ATRA operational budget. And in the next 20 days, hopefully we will have the final report, and we will make it public. And since we always demand transparency from the private sector, so it is part of my responsibility to also respond in the same manner to them. I think that's more than enough for me in regards to my timing.
Yes, thank you.
I already took 16 minutes, so thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you very much.
Well, good afternoon. On behalf of Dr. Ihsan Bayat, Chairman of Bayat Group and Afghan Wireless, Chief Administrative Officer Basir Bayat, and the more than 6,000 men and women that make up the employee base of Afghan Wireless, it's my pleasure to share a few minutes of information about AACC and some of the interesting initiatives we're moving forward with. AACC, as Dr. Bayat alluded to earlier, it's a wonderful tale of American investment, Afghan ingenuity, leading-edge technology, and partnership. Partnership with the government, in fact. The government is the largest external shareholder of AACC, and we have been a great beneficiary and partner with ATRA and Dr. Azizi's leadership and vision to move the industry forward, and it's exciting to hear the plans about the Digital Silk Road and some other things. I won't get into too much of the history. We've covered it a little bit already. 16 years ago, we tread where few were willing to. We decided to build a business, and we decided to build a business in a scalable fashion, unsure of what the outcome might be. And today, we've been very pleased as a commercial enterprise with the outcome, both as a business, both as an opportunity to create jobs, and as an opportunity to help train the next generation of business leaders in the ICT industry. We spent a lot of time recently deploying 4G. So as Dr. Bayat mentioned, I actually get better phone service when I'm traveling in Kabul than when I'm in many cities here in the United States. So 4G currently is provided in 6 major centers around the country, with another dozen due to be online towards the end of the year. So we're pleased with bringing the latest and leading edge technology to Afghanistan. And for those parts of the country where we have not yet deployed 4G, we are doing quite well at providing 3G service. So you can see that we've covered a large number of provinces with 3G, and it's just a matter of time before we bring all the new and modern service provision to the rest of the country. I wanted to spend a few minutes talking about fiber because, again, as Chairman Azizi talked about, the Digital Silk Road and turning Afghanistan into a central data hub is not only important for the country, we see it as a great business opportunity. So this photo was taken recently with our Managing Director, Mr. Amin Ramin, and Dr. Zizi talking about our business and moving into the fiber and building, helping to build the broadband superhighway of the country. And in order to do that, we're again doubling down, investing more money. It's also probably as dangerous for me to talk about investing hundreds of millions of dollars with the CFO in the room as it was to congratulate ourselves on being the largest taxpayer. But we brought in some really modern and advanced drilling and trenching technology. Some of this machinery is already in country, hard at work, and some of the machinery is very soon to arrive. So again, we are building the enabling infrastructure to help bring some of this vision of the Digital Silk Road to life. Here's a little bit of the work that's already been done. So this is not just a vision. These are not just words. This is actual fiber in the ground, fiber that's been procured from Corning. So this is underway. This is real, and this is an opportunity for businesses to grow services around the fiber highway, which is coming. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be back with the ICT panel this year. I think it was 16 months ago. We were on this panel, and I was speaking about the future of Tali Afghanistan and what we planned on doing in Afghanistan with a new Tali affiliate. I think I have a slide presentation there, please. So what I plan to do today, briefly, is to talk about what has happened with Tali Afghanistan since December. Can we just ask for the slides? 2016. Can we put the slides up, please? They were sent to Zaki last night. That's all right. Well, we'll go forward with it.
Alia?
Well, go ahead. That's all right. Like I said, 16 months ago, on this panel, I identified what we were planning to do. I can proudly report that as of February 2017, Tali Afghanistan was registered with the Ministry of Communications and Industry and obtained their IT and software license from the MOCI. We have a full-time office in Kabul, and we have local staff who are part of the new generation. I think was referenced several times today. We received our ATRA National ISP license and service provider licenses in June of 2017. Dr. Azizi, I don't think anybody respectfully has ever said you were soft. We've been through the process. But we're proud of getting those licenses and moving forward. The portfolio of Tali Afghanistan is IT systems and IP services on VSAT platforms and reselling microwave and fiber networks. Some organizational background. Tali Afghanistan is a subsidiary of Tali International LLC, the U.S. entity of Tali Holdings Limited, UK. And we were registered in Delaware in July of 2014. Thalia Holdings is based in London. It has provided integrated ICT solutions in the Middle East and Africa for over 15 years. Alan Afrasiab, who's the CEO President of Thalia Limited, is here with us, and hopefully we'll meet more people at the one-on-ones later. And he's also the
chairman and founder of QUICA, which I will address here in a few minutes. Other operational affiliates in the Thalia Holdings portfolio: Iraq, Nigeria, Uganda, South Sudan, Italy, Dubai, and Guyana. The Thalia Teleport is located in Reisting, Germany, with virtual network operation teleports in Southbury, Connecticut, and Amman, Jordan. At this point, there was going to be a beautiful slide of our Thalia Teleport in Bavaria outside Munich, but we'll just maybe catch up on that later. The next slide was our satellite footprint globally, where we have KU, C, and now KA band services that we'll address here, and also our fiber optic network that connects all of our points of presence. Thalia Afghanistan opportunities. You know, we're part of the affiliate program. We're 100% owned, 100% affiliate of Thalia, and where we have focus on local knowledge staff for implementation and sales activities, but the back office systems are all centralized. In our case, in London and in Reisting, Germany. Okay. There we go. Nice shot. A couple slides forward, please. We are in Afghanistan. We look to expand our subcontractor activity to U.S. government primes and local licensees providing services in country. What brought us to Afghanistan initially was our Iraq customers, primarily in the PSC donors and NGO world. They were very satisfied with what we've done for them in Iraq and have requested that we support them in Afghanistan. We're doing a lot of work in IT systems. Our staff there in Kabul is very IT oriented from their previous, from their education and from their previous experience in country. And we're doing quite a few tenders and getting awards for IT systems through our Thalia Technologies group. Another opportunity is the Thalia ICT Academy, following what we've done in South Sudan with the University of Juba, providing internet service to the computer science department there. And we want to expand our satellite services from KU and C-band into the new KA band services, hotspots, higher power, smaller ground segment equipment. Next slide. One more. Okay. QUICA, like we lost some, but QUICA is the new disruptive service, I can say, because it's been identified as that, announced in January at CABSAT in Dubai. And it addresses the 3.9 billion people without internet access, the unconnected, and QUICA provides a no-cost internet broadband to consumers. This is and you say, well, how do you do that? Well, it's basically an advertising model. Your mobile apps you get free, but you're going to get some advertising as well. What we are talking to agencies, NGOs, donors about having a public service announcement instead of an advertisement for the communities that are going to be providing these services. QUICA addresses the hurdles of infrastructure and affordability in developing countries. This, when we met with ITU and the UN, they were very focused on those two obstacles for expanding broadband in developing countries. QUICA takes care of that. Afghanistan is our first country to launch. I mean, I said third quarter 18 to be conservative. We have kits in Dubai now. They're being shipped to Kabul within the week. So we'll be able to provide demos to the community in Afghanistan. We have proposals for hundreds of systems for public schools, for rural public schools, that we're in discussions. We think we have a very attractive offer for them, and we're convinced that education is a key to Afghanistan's future. So this fits right into what we want to go forward with. Again, Quicka Free is the free service. It's supported by content sponsors, and we have other commercial activities and services under the Quicka brand that will be traditional pay for service. We have a distributor model. We are looking at working initially in countries where we have licenses, where Tally has license as the global distributor for Quicka limited services. Will be clean in terms of licensing. Where we don't have licenses, we're looking for distributors. And there's 30-something countries in Africa that we're looking at. And Quicka will be under a 3-phase program, multi-year. Initially, we're looking at geosynchronous orbit satellites to go from country to regional services, Afghanistan, Iraq, then to Africa, selected countries, then other systems to expand the Africa connection. And then the low Earth orbit systems, which cover the globe. So these discussions are all in progress. Next slide, the last slide. Other ICT investment opportunities. I'm not going to repeat what Dr. Azizi and others have presented. The new fiber licenses are the turning point for Afghanistan, as they have been for many developing and developed countries when they liberalized their wireline services. The climate changed. We'll also see, related to that, AFTEL should become more competitive in terms of cost and performance. Tally Afghanistan, we did in Iraq, we look at building local fiber loops first, and then expand or partner with others on national or cross-border projects. The opportunities for all licensees or transit, I think it was brought up earlier, direct de passage, which is the traditional carrier or cross-country service that is provided from border to border, border to seacoast, seacoast to seacoast, and voice hubbing opportunities. Data centers, hosting are an obvious add-on to the fiber infrastructure ads. And in a project that I think is pretty much being implemented through the Etisalat consortium, if you will, is the telecom coastline, bringing access to undersea cables to Afghanistan through transit across Pakistan or Iran, potentially. Once you get to the subsea fibers, the capacity is very limited. So we look forward to further discussions, and this afternoon and tomorrow at the bilateral meetings. Thank you.
We start this range sharing concept. Basically, we call it a virtual site service. We are open to the operators. Currently, I think 3-4 operators have signed up. In this sense, right now, they are all sharing the same sites. In essence, the operators don't need to build everything, but they're able to provide a service in the rural areas that our sites are currently supporting. Next project I would like to highlight is our digital TV license. We got awarded with digital TV license about 2013. The concept at that time, I think a lot of you understand, a TV station was still analog. Even today, a lot of them are still analog, providing analog service. So our vision basically is the sharing with the governments to convert the precious frequency and convert the analog service to digital service. So our strength is also the same open, shared concept. So basically, we are providing the distribution network to the TV stations so that they come and then use our distribution broadcasting network so that they can provide service across Afghanistan. In essence, there's no need for each TV station to build its own broadcasting tower in every province, in every city. All they need to do is focusing on their contents service, and they can provide a service, they provide a contents distribution to ACG, and ACG will be able to provide a service to across Afghanistan. I understand there are some issues, there have been some discussion in the last couple of years regarding the nature of the digital TV license, etc. But obviously that's all more of a tactical type of issues. But I'm sure we can address those concerns from a regulatory and also marketing force perspective. The other project we have taken on in the last couple of years is we are supporting the Afghanistan Aviation Control Management Service. Sure. Okay, so anyway, I would like to, given the time limit, I just want to highlight the point that we would like to take the concept further, the sharing, open, neutral service further. So we have started the data center construction. We have built data center across Afghanistan for the last couple of years. So we're offering a state-of-the-art environment, power backups, triple power backup, well air-conditioned environment, and also the technical support for business to host their own applications, servers in our data center. And with that, we also like to take the concept with our fiber license we have recently acquired, and our concept is to connect the dots. We would like to build a network, Afghan-centric. What I emphasize is Afghan-centric network, connecting all the data center we have so that we are able to offer service to all the private business. This is all the slides with the data center infrastructure. And obviously, later on, then all the service can be built, the national cloud service can be built over the infrastructure. So we have the transmission, we can look at transmission, the IP layer, the data center, plus all the other supports to have the national cloud service in Afghanistan. Lastly, I would like to share, I know there have been a lot of talk about 4G services in Afghanistan. We are promoting a concept, again, the sharing concept. Why does every MNO has to build its own 4G infrastructure? We understand the 4G is a very expensive infrastructure investment. So why can't we have a few, maybe called enabler, to build a physical network so that the operator can share the infrastructure? So there are various concepts of the sharing. I don't want to get into that. But I do like to highlight the concept. If you can see this chart, you have the layer 1, basically is the service provider. Okay, you can see the netcode, basically the passive infrastructure. You can see the network transmission part. That's the netcode. And also the services. That's basically, you can break the telecom ecosystem to this three parts. And we believe by sharing the infrastructure, all the resources, we're able to save the precious capital and resource to invest further in Afghanistan. So this is something ACG cares a lot. So at the end, I would like to conclude. ACG is the enabler, would like to provide open, neutral service to the sector. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So I want to thank the whole panel. We've got great ideas, of course, and I think good indication of growth. We'll take a few questions, I guess. We have?
Yeah, yes? We have time.
Good. Let me kick off because Dr. Azizi touched on a lot. I know he had to cut off a lot of his points on the slide, but one thing I'd like to ask, since you mentioned very shortly you'll be releasing the audit about funds, but what other things, let's say milestones or activities, can we expect from ATRA over the course of the next 6 to 9 months, so that anyone here who might be interested can, let's say, follow you on your website or keep abreast of what's happening?
Great. Okay, since I have skipped a lot of my slides, let me take this opportunity. Out of the 4 licenses that we have released for the fiber optic, let me inform everybody that 2 of them are US-based companies. And a third one is also renegotiating, and if we reach a conclusion, so out of 5 licenses, 3 of them will be issued to the American companies, and I think it's a positive news. Now, in regards of what is in the pipeline, a couple of strategic decisions that is in the pipeline, and it will facilitate the role of the private sector with further investments and also with further development in the telecom sectors. Of course, we have just issued the fiber licenses. Now we would be working on the right-of-ways, we would be working on the regulatory issues, on the interconnection, tariffs, all these things are in the pipeline, and I'm expecting that by 3rd week of May, we would have a number of consultants coming on board with us to work both with ATRA and with the private sector so that we have unbiased and neutral regulation in place. That's one. And then the second thing is that, as I mentioned, the 4G spectrum auction. Anywhere auction process is a complicated issue, but when it comes to countries like Afghanistan, we as the in charge of the process are very prone to allegations, both by our colleagues from the government, from the civil society, and then even from the private sector, that probably errors and mistakes were intentionally that has happened. So that's why it is taking a bit of time to release the new spectrum bands. However, with the involvement of the third party, I hope that we will have a more transparent process, but it will be a process that will take 9 months. So in the next 9 months, the telcos will have at least, I think, 25 megahertz of additional spectrum at their disposal in order to expand their 4G services. One more thing on the Telecom Development Fund. Now, it has been very unfortunate for us that we did not have a clear strategy on how to utilize the TDF money. We have been doing bits and pieces. We have been, it's a great news that with the support of the telcos, all the public universities in Afghanistan, which is in total 38, are connected to the internet now. More than 50% of that is connected through fiber, and then the rest 50% is through WiMAX technology. And this will be the first year that Kabul University will enjoy the same bandwidth that the universities in America and Europe are enjoying, 100 Mbps minimum we are providing. So it has been a great achievement. However, we did not have a clear vision. So again, I'm thankful to USAID that with your support, we had a contract. We have still a valid contract with NetHope, and we are working together in order to develop a strategy for the next 5 years on how to utilize the TDF funds in more transparent on one hand, but then also effectiveness and efficiency is important for us. Again, there is one allegation against this new management in ATRA that we are very slow in spending the funds. And that's very true, because we are more careful. We just do not want to spend the money for the sake of spending it. we should have been more efficient and more quick in making the decisions. It has taken us some time, but I hope that in the next 4 to 6 weeks, we will again publicly announce the strategy, which is for the next 5 years in regards to the utilization of the TTF.
Thank you. Just really quickly, since it was mentioned several times, digital CASA, is there a time? Digital CASA, it's a World Bank program that is essentially regional infrastructure integration. CASA, C-A-S-A.
Yeah, so CASA stands for, CA stands for Central Asia, and SA stands for South Asia. As we have got in the power sector, CASA 1000, so the same concept has been transformed in the digital phenomena as well. So digital CASA is in the initial phase, under the initial or the project preparatory grant, ATRA is bringing in 6 technical assistants, which will be looking at into different issues, including updating the regulations, development of the guidelines on the interconnection, on the tariff management, on the right-of-ways. So there are a couple of areas that we are working. So it's already, the project preparatory grant is $5 million, and in the next phase, there will be another $51 million for the real work.
All right, we're going to take a couple audience questions, Oliver, if that's okay. Here you go.
Hi, Keith from Rumi Spice. Thank you guys for that great presentation. The telecom industry, I have a two-part question. Is the telecom industry profitable for companies to enter into without assistance from World Bank or other donor countries? And second part of that question is, what do you see as the greatest obstacle to the expansion of the physical infrastructure of telecom in Afghanistan?
Chairman Azizi?
Oh, I thought it would be very good for
okay, Monty. Monty. Okay.
See, security is the major challenge that we are having. It's a very sad thing to share that probably on a weekly basis, I do get reports from the companies that their towers are burned, and they have been threatened by the Taliban that if they do not switch off their towers, kidnapping sometimes happens for their engineers in the sites. So security is a major bottleneck as a regulator that I understand. But then, of course, the expectation is also a problem. The expectation of the private sector is very high from us. And probably sometimes also coming from academic background, my expectation is very bookish from the private sector. I want too much of transparency from the private sector. So that's another problem from my side that I can say. But overall, if the security situation improves, I can say that the investment in the ICT sector could become tenfold higher in the next 2 to 3 years.
Monty, on the challenges for getting into telecom?
Oh.
Just speak, it should go on.
Yep, so this is, it's my pleasure to answer that question. So from our side, we entered the space when, as the pioneer, and it was very, no one was happy to finance or invest alongside it. So we invested ourselves with some fantastic equipment partners at the time. And, if anything, I would argue it's a little bit easier now because we have a number of operators. We have 16 years of track record, and we have an incredibly well-run sort of regulatory environment. So the question about being profitable, it's, if we didn't have as many other operators on the panel with me, I'd say it's really profitable, but it's a successful industry, and it's an important industry that continues to grow. It's an industry that is beyond just sort of service provision of voice and data, right? I mean, we have a really interesting, and multiple operators have really interesting mobile money platforms. And I think, we sit here today as a group that we're really fascinated by sort of the convergence of finance and power and telephony networks coming together. So this is, it is indeed a profitable opportunity. And I'd just like to comment, you asked about, some of the obstacles. So here are two obstacles which don't exist anymore, right? So we have a great regulatory environment that was started as Dr. Bayat and others have said back when Mr. Ghani had a different job. And this has evolved with the industry, and it's arguably, not only in the developing world, but arguably in sort of other parts of the world in general. We have a regulatory environment in Afghanistan that is, it's fantastic, and it's growing. It's understanding that things are changing. So that's not a bottleneck, and I would argue as well that human capital is no longer as big a bottleneck as it was when we first started. So this is, again, a compliment to all the operators, right? We've spent time training our own employees, so we have a generation of young, talented engineers, men and women, who are now entrepreneurs. And some of the schools are doing fantastic things. I mean, Kabul University, we have the new Bayat Institute of Technology at American universities who, again, sort of continue to build the next generation. So there's rich opportunities, and there's lots of resources now in country.
Director General Sarouche.
Thank you. Thank you, the whole panel, for the excellent presentations. A very quick question for Dr. Azizi. As was just mentioned, digital connectivity is making good progress. One good example is, of course, CASA, digital CASA, but I think it can be better exemplified by the broader digital Silk Road, as was mentioned in one of the presentations. My specific question is on the contribution that digital connectivity is making to the broader, to the formation of broader economic corridors inside Afghanistan. One such economic corridor is now being shaped around the Tapi gas pipeline, which includes, among other components, of course, the fiber optic cables. My question is, how do you see the progress being made, and also the possibility of its replication around other major mega regional projects around Afghanistan?
Great. Thank you very much. I do understand that now we are becoming more organized. Again, we are ahead of all other sectors, but still we are always around to improve our performance. Part of that is that now, under the guidance of His Excellency the President, all the major infrastructure projects will accommodate the availability of fiber optic. So if a new highway is built, or if the pipelines are coming, or if the railway lines are developed, so all of them under the instruction of His Excellency will have the
conduits?
Yes, the ducts and the other required infrastructure for the development of the ICT sector. So it is a very important thing that is happening, and as you mentioned, yes, all of these major infrastructure projects are supporting, in one way, the development of the ICT sector. And as I mentioned it before, that ICT sector likewise has its role in the development of the non-ICT sectors.
If I could, I want to jump in on a couple things. We met several months ago in Kabul with you, Mr. Chairman, and you said to me that you're very aware of the requirements under the U.S.-Afghanistan Compact when it comes to ICT tasks, including the issuance of licenses for the 4G, including the audit for ATRA and the TDF, and including also some issues revolving mobile money and state-owned companies around AFTEL. You have achieved almost everything that you promised me you would get done. A month later, I want to note, but you got it done. And we will communicate that to our government about how important we feel as an industry organization that is, because predictability, transparency, and compliance are the keys to good business and to good governance. So a second thank you is for picking 3 U.S. companies to be on your licensees group. We're very appreciative of that. That's very important to us because it also shows other American companies and potential investors that there is a legitimate market in Afghanistan long term. And if they're not in there now, they're going to be missing out on big opportunities. So on behalf of the AACC, we want to thank you for that very much. Deserving of applause. Tomorrow we will have Mr. Karam from ATRA's board who will be addressing the issue of AFTEL as an investment play for U.S. or other companies that are interested in the Afghan market. So I'm not going to ask you about AFTEL right now. But can we, Oliver, any final comments from each of the members on anything they'd like to make before we close up?
There's one more question.
Oh, is there Bill down in front there? Oh, I didn't see his hand. Bill Jorn, one of the AACC board members.
My arm was getting tired from constantly holding it up. Over the beginning just a few years ago, particularly, we started thinking in how to organize this conference with the idea that Afghanistan is central to that part of the world and that part of Asia and so forth. And it strikes me, listening to these presentations, fundamental to developing Afghanistan as the hub for that area is the telecom and the digital industries. So I'd like you to comment on how, maybe 2 or 3 of you could just say 1 or 2 things on how that reality is developing, and I do say it, that reality is developing, and how it interfaces with the surrounding countries who will respect Afghanistan's role as central to that geographic area, and how the telecom industry really does pull all that together and then throws it out again to create opportunity, business opportunities for many different populations, both within Afghanistan and in neighboring countries.
Sure, I'll start just briefly. So, as one of my slides mentioned, it's actually being enabled. So, you know, we have fiber to the border and we have projects ongoing, so it's actually happening currently. I think commercially, this vision will be realized because, you know, the fastest way to move something from South Asia to Europe is not going to be on, you know, through the long route. The fastest way to move data from South Asia, Afghanistan, that part of the world to Europe is not going to be through the undersea cables through Pakistan. It's quicker if you take it, you know, ultimately across Iran through Armenia and that direction. So I think, I believe that commercially it'll just, you know, the commercial realities will drive the evolution.
Just a point, having sold transit facilities across the U.S. in my past lives, it's a very demanding service, high quality, resilient, robust, very high performance requirements, 99.99 availability. This is what the industry globally expects from a transit provider. That's my concern about, in the short term, how Afghanistan is going to become a transit hub. It may be a midterm, more reality, a midterm objective. Just depends on how fast construction is completed and how well the operators work together. You know, you can cooperate or you can compete or you can do both. There's the opportunity to restore each other's services on the long haul fiber, and I think in the reality is it's really a significant step to provide those services on an international basis.
Ken?
Sorry. I'd like to highlight a few points from...
Little, just speak.
On? Can you, okay.
It's on, just speak, and it'll automatically...
Being a hub, Afghanistan is developing into, in our opinion, that could become the hub of the Central South Asia. If you look at Afghanistan compared with the neighboring countries, the telecom sector is actually quite advanced from regulatory and also from the support from the international body perspective. So it's actually a right place. Being the I would like to call it the hub of the data and contents. And we all understand ICT is not just the network. It's not just the fiber. It's actually the contents, what value the network is able to bring to the people. So the only to do that is the contents. That's why we view having a data center, having a national cloud is actually the one to address the issues. So right now, all the content, there's virtually little content in Afghanistan. And I think Dr. Azizi addressed that earlier. So we believe that having a state-of-the-art certified national data center will be the key to that. Right now, if any one of you in Afghanistan wants to access, say, YouTube or Facebook, all the data being hosted outside Afghanistan. There's somewhere else in the US or UK. How do you pull the data? You have to pull all the way 1,000 miles away to Afghanistan. If every one of Afghan does that, how much traffic is going to generate? And unfortunately, Afghanistan, from international traffic perspective, is so imbalanced. Afghanistan at the end of the ecosystem, since there's no contents, so all the data is being downloaded in Afghanistan. There's very little traffic going out. So from ISP perspective, ISP has to pay a lot of money to pay upstream providers in Pakistan, in Iran, in all the surrounding countries to bring contents into Afghanistan. So that from that perspective, actually costs ISPs, carriers, a lot of money. And that in turn, the Afghan people have to pay for it. So we believe that having an Afghan-centric network, data center, and also a national cloud is the way to address that imbalance.
Excellent points. Chairman Azizi, you want to make a few last points?
We used to have one statement which has now turned into a reality. We used to say that we are looking for an enabled environment with a strategic investment that will create infrastructure to position Afghanistan as the strategic hub. I normally do not name my licenses specifically when I have got a number of them, but since Chairman Bayat is sitting here, and he is a couple of years elder than me, so I have to tell you honestly that why I'm so enthusiastic about the implementation of the new licenses for the fiber deployment in Afghanistan. Within 4 weeks, AACC has started deployment of fiber from Torkham towards Jalalabad, from Islam Qala towards Herat, from Torgundi towards Herat, from Hayratan towards Mazar, and from Spin Boldak towards Kandahar. And that says a lot to me. I'm giving the example of only one of my licensees. I'm sure that Etisalat, Roshan, ACG, everybody is working. But since Mr. Bayat and his team have been on ground for so long, so they knew that, okay, a license will be issued to us, so they're ready beforehand. So this has already enabled us to understand that the domestic penetration and utilization is improving. And what Ken said that the internet exchange points at the domestic level, in particular the cache servers and all these things, the data centers, they are the integral components that enable us to understand that how we are bringing efficiency. Now, we talk about the low costs and everything. However, these are the additional components, and it does not require large investors. We are talking now about the small and medium enterprises, that they are also getting the opportunity to come forward and play their role and bring about the alternates for the different challenges that we were facing in the past, and now we are very much hopeful that we will not be facing it in 2019. Thank you.
That's a really good point. Oliver, one of the things we talked about in the working group at AACC was the security issue around these major new licensee and investments that are coming. Tomorrow afternoon, we have a whole panel on security. Doug Brooks is going to be moderating that panel, and we want to talk about how are we going to secure all of these major new investments, because that is a big fear. If we spend major dollars on implementation and attacks begin, that could stifle the entire investment environment. So we really want to get into that tomorrow, and we hope you'll be here tomorrow to maybe participate in that discussion. The second part of it was, in our working group, we've been talking about the threat of cyber in Afghanistan. Many people don't know, but the North Koreans attacked about a year and a half ago the Bangladesh National Government Treasury and stole $22 million directly out of the Treasury. In Afghanistan, we've had many conversations both with the government and the private sector companies about protections, and there really is not a unified national strategy yet on cyber for all the ICT assets and financial assets of the country. We'd like to engage with you maybe over the next year on pushing that conversation more and trying to get some real recommendations, both on the commercial side for protections, but also on the government side, because we think the U.S. is moving very quickly on its own and investing a lot of money in cyber with private sector companies who have come to us and said, has anybody talked to Afghanistan about this yet? So listen, we really want to thank you guys. That was a fantastic panel. Thank you so much. All right, so this is where we usually break for a quick one-on-one session. What we'd like to ask is if our speakers could just come down and take a seat at a table. Any of you businessmen or women that would like to sit and have a one-on-one with them, please do so. We're not doing it as a schedule this year because we had so many presentations today. We feel everybody's a little overloaded. And don't forget, our dinner is across the street at the JW Marriott Hotel at 7 o'clock. Please be on time because we have a fixed program tonight, and we're very much looking forward to the award presentation for Chairman Bayat. And we thank you all. I hope you had a great day.